Welcome back to Lesson 11 of Doodling with Purpose. Lesson 11, wow, that means we've been doing this for, it'll be almost 3 months pretty soon. And you guys have learned a ton about hieroglyphics so far. We've got the entire basic one consonant glyph system down. And you guys should be practicing that each week. And that's, basically what you're going to find when you Google things like hieroglyphic alphabet. You're going to basically find about roughly 20 signs that are equivalent to our ABCs and our single consonant. But as I mentioned last week, there's a lot more glyphs than just the single consonant. There are double consonant called bilateral signs, and there are triple consonant signs, which have, like I said, 3 consonants. And I know I said we were going to get into that this week, but, well, yeah, I know. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Before we get to talking about the double consonant signs, I want to take a quick pause in our week-by-week sign build-up to talk a little bit about reading and introduce you to not just the concept of reading hieroglyphic, but your first 2 words, essentially, which is all going to use single consonant letters, so that we won't be skipping ahead too much. All right, quick though, let's do a time for review. Let's look at those signs we learned last week, the alternative single consonant signs. All right, so first we had the alternative for N, line diagonal, go down, going up, half circle, across, connect, and a little flourish, and that's the crown for N. Next up we have statue base M, pretty easy, down, diagonal, and across, and 2 strokes are the alternate for W or Y. Okay, so let's talk about reading. And the big thing to know about reading hieroglyph is there are no vowels. I know we've had A, and we've talked about like I and things like that, but it's not a traditional A. It's more like a guttural sound in the back of the mouth. You're not making a traditional A sound because there are no vowels in hieroglyphic, only consonants. And this is not a concept unique to Egyptian writing. If you're familiar with, for example, Hebrew is written without vowels. There are vowels in it for beginners, but if you go to Israel or you read out of traditional Jewish texts like the Torah, there are no vowels. The same thing with Arabic. There are indicators for vowels, but there are no vowels in it. So this is absolutely something that's present in a lot of languages. And hieroglyphs are made up of consonants stacked against each other to make up words. So let's look at some examples in English. All right. Can you read what it says here without vowels? You can probably, if you try hard, if you will, like it says. But it is a little difficult. And to make it easier, hieroglyphs have something called a determinative. What is a determinative? A determinative is a symbol that is at the end or on top or below a word that gives you a hint that reminds you what the word is. So as an English example, you could see this is the word puzzle, written without vowels. And then next to the word puzzle is a group of puzzle pieces, which helps jog your memory, which helps remind you of what word you're reading. So when you're reading hieroglyph, it's a combination of words made up of consonants plus determinatives. Those are signs that don't represent sounds, but are a direct picture representing the word that you're seeing. Now today we're not going to do determinatives. We're just going to look at 2 words written without vowels to start off. And the first word we're going to look at is the word for bird. Now there's a lot of bird glyphs out there, but we're not actually going to be looking at the bird glyphs as determinatives. We're going to look at the actual word for bird, which is aped, A-P-E-D. But of course, we're not going to write the A and the E. We're going to write A, which you remember is the first bird that, well, it is a bird sign, but it's the first one we learned. That's A, then P, the P, which is the reed mat, and the D, which is a hand. So you're writing apud, A-P-D. Now let's look at how you read signs in order. This is a great map I found online that's actually from one of my favorite books as well, and it shows you the order that you read signs in. So you're going to start with whatever direction the animals are looking and read into them. So in this case, because they're all looking to the left, we're going to read left to right. So you'll start there at the far left with the read. That's number 1. Then number 2 is that chick. 3 is the man. 4 is the face. Then under him is a stroke. 6 is the owl. 7 is the arm, and so on, that you're reading across sign by sign. And you'll notice some of the signs are stacked on top of each other, some are just next to each other, and sometimes they even go down as you get to sign 11, 12, and 13. Because this is basically because hieroglyphs had to be very economical. So looking at this example, how would you read this in order? Well, 1 would be the read, 2 would be the hill, T, 3 would be the R, 4 would be the chick, and 5 would be the 3 wavy lines. And I know this looks like N 3 times, but it's actually a different letter. It's a double consonant sound we'll get into in the future. But you could see how you're not just reading straight across, you're reading with some signs stacked on top of each other as the correct order. It's a little tricky, and it's a little different from English, so it's something to get used to. All right, let's look at our second word. We're going to do the word for fish. So the word for fish is ram, or ram. And here we have a determinative. So we have the R plus the M, and then we have a fish at the end to remind you that's your determinative, like that puzzle we showed you earlier in English, that this is the word fish. R plus M, that's ram, fish, and then the determinative of the fish at the end is not pronounced. That is a symbol reminding you that you're reading the word for fish. So it helps define what you're reading, which is actually what makes hieroglyphs a lot easier than you'd think, because you're constantly seeing pictures of the word you're saying to help jog your memory and remind you of what you're saying, which is actually really cool. All right, so the word for fish, ram, R, the mouth, and then M, the owl. Line down, body, the back of the wing, up, the little lower body, something to stand on, and the beak. So there is ram, or ram. Now, as I mentioned, hieroglyphs are very economical as far as usage of space. You can see them left to right to left, or even up and down. And that's basically because they're written on stone walls, not paper. Well, they were written on papyrus, but when they're written on stone walls, you basically have to go the way the walls go, which means you have to be very economical in use of space, which is why the glyphs aren't just read straight on, and sometimes they're stacked, sometimes they're next to each other. This is all basically in order to conserve space and write them in the most economical way possible. So when you're reading up and down, you're just starting at the top and going straight down, which makes it a lot easier. Sometimes reading glyphs up and down is even easier. So let's see fish up and down. So it would be R at the top, and then below it would be the M, the owl. And again, that's the body down, the leg, the back wings, up, hard angle, bottom, something to stand on, and the beak. So same word, but now written up and down. So there you go. That is kind of a basic introduction to how hieroglyphs don't use vowels. So, again, here's an example in English. You can probably tell immediately what that is. And if there was a determinative, let's say of maybe a birthday cake, it would help remind you that that says happy birthday. There's obviously no determinative here, but that's the basic concept. Okay, next week for sure, we are going to get into the double consonants. But I'm glad that we took a quick pause to learn our first 2 vocabulary words, opid for bird and ram for fish. Next week, we're going to start tackling these double consonant sounds, which is only going to add to your ability to read and write more and more hieroglyphs and have more and more doodling with purpose. If you like this video and you want to see more, well, you can go back and watch all of the other 10 lessons and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. It's the best way to support this channel, and it won't even cost you a pharaoh's ransom. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.